Hey, beautiful soul, welcome to today's Soul Chat. So, today we are talking about the aspect of motherhood where we go through very human things, emotions, thoughts, moments where it feels so raw, and also at the same time, even when things are really challenging, really tough, we just keep going. We're devoted to doing the things that we need to as a mother. And I want to expand this outside of just motherhood. If you're listening to this and you're not a mom, think about it being the duality of being spiritual yet human, being spiritual but yet of the material. And this topic is such a huge topic, I think, especially now, because so many of us are trying to figure out, like, I want more from life. I want that deeper I want more from life. So it's like you're desiring that deeper connection to life, the deeper meaning to life, the purpose to life, the mission that you're here, your soul mission, and trying to live that out. But you also want to live the human side of things, the material side of things, which is maybe you desire wealth, maybe you desire through wealth, you desire luxurious things. Maybe you desire a really big home and nice cars and a yacht and vacations that are at the fanciest places, okay? So the first myth that I want to break for you before we get further into this conversation is that if I am spiritual, I cannot be wealthy, or I cannot desire money, or I cannot desire luxurious things. The first thing that we need to understand is that as a human, we're going to have desires. And as a human, those desires are valid, okay? And being spiritual, having that spiritual aspect of us and being connected to that spiritual aspect doesn't mean that you don't desire. It means that you do not have attachment to those things, okay? That's why you see a lot of people out there that are super wealthy, but they're also very spiritual. They're also very grounded. They have a very sound practice and connection to their soul and moving forward in that path. And so I want you to get that thought out of your head. And if that thought is even there, like, really kind of think through it and maybe journal on, like, where did that thought come from? Is that your thought, or did it come from somewhere else? And really break it down. I know for me, I had that thought for a very long time, and especially because I have a spiritual business, it was very hard for me in the beginning to ask for money, to charge money for, like, my services. For if I would do a class, like, it would always be a free class, but I always felt energetically depleted, and it just didn't feel like the best energetic exchange. And when I sat with myself and I sat with my soul and I sat with spirit, I started to understand that just because I'm offering something of a spiritual service, whether it's a healing or it's a meditation or whatever it may be, that doesn't mean that I don't get to charge, and that doesn't mean that I'm not going to make money out of this. Like, I had to break that thought pattern that I had within myself of, like, being spiritual means I can't make money. And I think that's a huge myth for many of us. So I wanted to break that myth, because as I go further into this topic of being devoted and being human from the mother aspect, it's very important to understand that it's very possible, right? That the meaning of this is balance, and is to understand that we are living in in a human body and living in human experience through our spirit. And this means that in order for us to have a happier, fulfilled life, is to bring them both together in balance. It's not to have, be on one side versus the other. It's to bring the material and the spiritual together. And how do you do that? You be of this world, you be of this earth, but you're also connected to spirit. So that means that you do not have attachments to the material, right? A simple example of that would be if you are working a job and you're really tied to the title and the status of the job, and then you get laid off. And then it's all of a sudden like you were so attached to that title, the money that you were making, all of this stuff, that when you lost your job, you went into depression. It was very hard for you to come out of it. You were attached to the title, the status, and the money, right? And so the material had control over you. You didn't have control over the material. And that's the aspect of this entire conversation that I want you to understand. So I'm going to use my fist for you to understand. So this is what we think. We think this is the soul and this is the human. Okay? So the soul is within our human body, but that's not the case. The soul is around us. It's our spirit, okay? And our human body is the vessel, the vehicle that takes us and takes our soul onto the path that it needs and wants to take. Okay, so for example, if you know your soul mission is to cure cancer, for example, and you're going on the path of curing cancer, you're doing all the things, the research, all the things that you need to do, right? Your body is the vehicle that's allowing you to do the studying, to do the research, to go out there, to maybe be in the lab, like whatever it is that you need to do. Your body is doing that, but your soul is pushing you. Your soul is the energy that is pushing you forward. Your soul is also the intuition. It's like the battery in a toy, if you can think about it. The toy is the vehicle. The toy is the vessel, right? You take a toy, it's a vessel. Inside the toy, there's a battery, and when you turn the battery, when the battery's in, it's operating, you turn it on, the toy starts to work, or if it's a car, it starts to move, right? If there's no battery in it, it doesn't move. That's the same thing with us. Our human body needs our soul. The soul does not need this human body. The soul will then move on to another human body. Okay? So the soul is eternal. The human body is not. The human body is mortal. And so what do I want you to understand? And what is the core message that I want you to have of this topic today? Is to understand that being of the material world and being of the spiritual world, so being very, very devoted and also being very human, is possible, okay? And how is that possible? And I'm going to explain that to you through the lens of motherhood, where we started this topic. So as a mom, there are moments that you feel very, very, very challenged. Okay, you feel very human. It's very raw. There's emotions, you're crying, you might be raging. It's very raw. And in those moments that you feel so human, you also feel very guilty, because you're like, how could I get myself to this moment in front of my kids? How could I do this? How could I think this about my kids? How could I think this about motherhood in general? Okay, that persona that I just described is the humanness of motherhood. But yet you're still devoted, because in that humanness, you're still thinking, and you're still, from your heart, still have this aspect of you where you love your kids, and you also love the journey that you're on. Because if you didn't, you would just quit. That's the truth of our human nature. Okay? And this is the best example of the duality and balance of the human and of the devoted. Being devoted goes down to being so deep in love. And when I'm saying love, it's not like the, I love you, Valentine's Day love. This is the unconditional love, the love that never changes no matter what. And that's a love that a mom has for a child. That love gets planted into a mother's heart way before she even is carrying the baby, right? When she's calling in the soul of the baby, that love is being planted from spirit, from God, into her heart, to open up her heart, to expand her heart, to clear out all the muck that may be there, to make space. And then the soul comes in, and then she's pregnant. And when she's pregnant, then she's creating this bond, with this baby. She's doing all of the things to make sure that she's healthy, the baby's healthy, she gets to a healthy birth. And then once the baby's born, she'll protect it. And this goes across like any animal you think about. Like if you think about like the mom and and the child, a bird, a lion, a tiger, a bear, whatever, like just whatever you want to think about, right? The motherly love, the devotion that a mom has is deeply rooted in this unconditional love that is given to her by spirit. And it's not, when I say it's given to her, it's more of a remembrance, right? Because the one thing I want you to understand is like, we're not separated from spirit. We are spirit. We're just remembering that. And so things are being uncovered in us as we're going on our journey of life. And so within a mother's journey, she's unveiling that devotion within her, the deep unconditional love within her, to allow her to be that mom. And it never goes away. It never goes away. Even when she's raging, she's still devoted. And she's still very human at the same time. And there's no shame around that. There's no shame around being completely raw in your emotions, yet completely devoted as well in motherhood. Because that is what motherhood is. That is the definition of motherhood. And that's also the definition of life, right? When we can balance the devotion with the humanness and not have any shame around it, not have any guilt around it, and just live our life from that place of this is who I am and I'm showing up authentically as myself, that is when we break the chains and the barriers of the fears and doubts and enslavement that we've been in, that we've been conditioned to be in, and we start to actually live from the aspect of spirit, the aspect of soul. Because we're no longer chained to our ego. We're no longer chained to this identity that our ego has been keeping up because it's been programmed to think that it needs to act a certain way. It needs to do a certain thing. It has an identity, so I need to be this way, right? We break that and we start to be like, no, this is who I am. I do have raw emotions, and so does everybody else. And there is no shame and no guilt around it. And I think the core message that I want you to walk away with is this message, that you can be completely, deeply devoted in your craft, whether that be motherhood or anything else, yet you can still feel human. And also, you can still be spiritual and also desire the material. And that is the way that God has intended it to be. God didn't create all of these great things in our life just to say, hey, like, I want you to have discipline and absence from all of it and like not desire it. I want you just to walk the path of me and just seek me. No. Some of us will do that, but many of us will not. Many of us are just living a human life, and we need to drop the guilt and the shame around who we are, as we are. Because devotion is anchored and is really rooted in love, okay? It's not rooted in fear. And shame and guilt is rooted in fear. And so when we come from a place of shame and guilt and we're doing something from a place of shame and guilt, even if we're thinking we're doing act of devotion, an act of spirituality, we're not, because we're coming from a place of fear. So it's not as pure as if we came from a place of love. And so I'll leave you with that message. I hope that this landed for you. If you have any questions, as always, put it in the comment section. I will be back next week with another soul chat. I love you all so much. Peace, love, and light. Namaste.